Hey guys, it's Shelby, otherwise known as Shelby's here on YouTube, and this is going to be a part of my abusive relationship series. I'm really sorry that I skipped a couple weeks, a couple Tuesdays uploading on this series. I didn't only miss those weeks because I was busy, but also the second week I missed because the other video that I should be doing before this one, if I'm going in order of time and sequence and stuff like that, is actually a video that's a lot harder to talk about than just the abusive side of it. It's something that is very personal that I went through, and I just think that at this point in my life, because I am trying to get my career off the ground as far as, you know, in my professional life, YouTube is not my job, it's just my hobby, and so putting that information out there at this point in my life, not because I'm not comfortable with it, but just because it's very personal, I'm gonna skip basically my 7th and 8th grade year. Like maybe someday when I don't have to worry about an employer finding these videos, I can talk about it, but for now it's not something that I want to share with the world. Not because I think the world is gonna watch my video, but just because, you know, these are public, and it's one of those things that once you put stuff on the internet, it's basically always there. So we're gonna skip that part. I have recently gotten a lot of young female subscribers over the last couple weeks. If you are ever needing advice on a relationship, new young subscribers, email me. I always have my email in all my description boxes. It is for business inquiries, but it's also for you guys if you ever need to reach out to me if you want advice, and I will tell you what I went through one-on-one. I don't mind sharing it at all. So if you want to know, you can just do that. If you're going through something, chances are I've been through it. You can message me and we can talk about that. But yeah, so that's kind of it for the intro of this part. I will say that between my 8th grade year and going into 9th grade year, that summer was when I did lose my virginity. And just to give you a little lowdown of what happened between 7th and 9th grade is mostly where I was starting to understand that I was Lucifer's property. Okay, that's the boyfriend's name. Also, if you haven't seen the other ones, the other videos in this series, there's 2 more that you should go watch before this. I'll link them up here. I think they come up on this side. One of these sides. I'll put the little annotations and you can go watch them, or I'll link them below, or you can go to my channel and find them, however it works. The thumbnail is the same for all of them. I'm trying to make it easy for you guys to find them. I will say that between that time is when I started to realize that Lucifer owned me. Like I started not being allowed to hang out with my friends, not even outside of school, but in school as well. Like it was when I got to school, I had to go sit at the table with him because we had like a period of time before class started that we would sit around, you know what I mean? I would have to go sit with him. At lunch, I had to sit with him. Any time we had to do things in school, it was with him. Outside of school, I wasn't allowed to go to my friends' houses, and he even got mad when I would have my friends over. I wasn't even allowed to go to my aunt's house. Back then, I used to spend a lot of weekends with my aunt and my cousin, and like I would just go to their house and spend the night for the weekends. And he started to get to the point where he wouldn't let me do that. Like they would come over to get us or to like to hang out with us, and normally we would go home with them, my sister and me, and he would start telling me I couldn't do that anymore. I wasn't allowed to do that anymore. And I remember sometimes when I did, if it was like I had to because my parents were going out of town or anything like that, he would make me send him pictures while I was there, like with my phone, send him pictures of like my aunt's house to like verify that I was actually with my aunt. And he would try to call me all the time and be on the phone with me all the time, not ever talking about anything, just to be sure I wasn't doing anything that he wouldn't approve of. And I remember like feeling like it was okay. Like I just kept making excuses, like, you know, if I do this for so long, then he'll eventually forgive me and he'll eventually trust me and he'll eventually let me do what I want, and we'll eventually get to a point where I won't have to worry about this stuff anymore. And honestly, at that time in my life, this is so pathetic, but I was like thinking long term, like, yeah, as soon as I graduate school, then we can move in together and it won't be a big deal, and I can go see my friends and family anytime I want because then I'll be spending most of my time with him. And that was the way my mentality was starting to be, was what can I do to make sure he's okay with this? And like I said, we're gonna skip mostly the 7th and 8th grade years, but the thing is, this is the most important part of it because this is like the core of it. Like even if someone's not being abusive to you, them controlling your life and like changing who you are and how you think when you're so young like that, and it impacts the way the rest of your life is going to be. Like take it from me. So let me give you an example. I started having very little influence in my life. I started thinking that he was always right about everything, and I started trusting in him so much. And because he never let me go to my family's house, I started distancing myself from them. I wasn't very close to them at that point. Luckily now I've fixed so many of these relationships that he tried to ruin, but I say that this is the more important part because you can get wrapped up in something and lose who you are. And I don't mean by like your interests, that I mean like your personality. I mean like I used to be such, and I'm getting back to that now. I'm getting so much better now, but I used to be such a free-spirited, don't give a fuck kind of person who would talk to anyone and had confidence in myself. But over time, spending time with only him and only having his negative influence in my life, I started to lose confidence in myself. I didn't have the confidence to go up to people and just make friends anymore. I didn't have the opportunity to do that because he didn't let me. And I'm such an introverted person now, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be an introverted person, but when it starts to take a toll on your life, your professional life, when you need to be networking, like say in college, I found that I needed to be networking so much, but I was such an introverted person. I had so much confidence issues with going up and like talking to people because of the fact that I hadn't done it for so long, and he made me think that it was a bad thing to do for so long that it changed my mentality and how I think. And if I hadn't noticed that, if I hadn't gotten out of the relationship, if I hadn't noticed the impacts it had on me, it could have had really serious impacts to my professional life today. I'm so glad I went through this at such a young age, and it wasn't like in my high school years and I didn't have time to get out of it before I really needed it in the real world. But this is gonna be the longest video of this series. But my point in saying that is I really want you guys to recognize when someone is controlling you, the negative impacts it can have on like your mental state and who you are as a person, and then eventually it can impact your professional life. I want you to realize that. And I also want anyone watching this to realize that if you think that there is ever going to come a day where the person says, okay, you've done everything I've asked for X amount of time, I now trust you. That day is not going to come. Okay, you need to know that. If the person is controlling, if the person wants you to be their property, if they tell you you can't talk to this person or that person, you can't wear this, you can't wear that, they have a problem. They have a problem within themselves, with trust issues, with confidence issues. They're projecting their feelings onto you. So when someone doesn't trust you, chances are it's because they're doing something bad in their own life. If you haven't done anything for that trust to be taken away, they're doing something behind your back. And that is something I definitely found out. So don't ever get caught up in this idea that if you just do what they want long enough, eventually they will stop. That is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I know you want to believe that it will. And I wish that were true. I wish that this person that you love who's treating you terribly would wake up and realize it one day and change. But like I said, the problem is in their head. It's not you, and you're never going to be able to fix that for them. Obviously, if someone starts to show controlling tendencies and they truly care about you and you bring it to their attention, they can address it, because towards the end of this series, I guess I'll talk about my relationships following this relationship and how I dealt with those things. I definitely did show some controlling tendencies when I got into my current relationship, just because I was so used to that being how our relationship worked. Advice from your older sister Shelby here. But this is not even what I wanted this video to be about, because I kind of skipped over 7th and 8th grade, but definitely that is such an important part of this whole series. And maybe I could just upload this video alone on its own, but I feel like this was just kind of like an advice section, and now I need to get into the story time section. So this story is going to be about something that took place, I believe it was probably my freshman year, yeah, my freshman year. And my parents were not the best, well, not my parents, let's say my mom. My mom was not the best parent in that she was, and this is a whole nother series I could do someday. My mom growing up was an alcoholic, and a lot of people think that that's cool, a lot of people think that that's funny, but I guess it can be if your mom is funny when she's drunk or, you know, whatever. My mom was not, but that's whatever, like I said, that's a whole different story. So basically what happened was my mom had a birthday party once upon a time, my 9th grade year, and my boyfriend was there. He came over, which was different because he didn't come to my house very often because my parents didn't really like him, or my dad didn't like him, because you guys may have heard before, my dad is racist, and my dad and him also got in a fight once upon a time. So my boyfriend's at my house, and we're having this party. Somehow, some way, I convinced my mother to buy us alcohol, okay, and it wasn't like, I didn't have a ton of friends over. It wasn't this huge party. I think it was like my best friend was there, he was there, and then my sister and her best friend was there. I think that was about it. There was only like a few of us. Anyway, somehow I convinced my mom to buy us alcohol. Like I said, my mom was an alcoholic, so it wasn't that difficult. She always would say she would rather us drink at the house and know that we're safe rather than us like going out and drinking, which I think is fine, but here's the catch. I was in 9th grade, so I wasn't even 16 yet, which to me feels like a more like okay age to drink at home. But my mom didn't just buy us like wine coolers. I convinced my mom to buy us Everclear. I don't know how I knew what that was. I don't know why I wanted it. I think somehow, some way I found it at school that it was like the quickest, fastest way to get drunk. And still to this day, I do not like to drink. I don't drink, and it's not just because of my mom. It's just so many fucking calories and it makes me feel so heavy, and I don't like to drink like sugary drinks because then I get weighed down really fast. I get really full really fast. If I, you know, drink beer, it tastes like shit, and I don't really like wine. I'm only going to drink to get drunk. Drinking is not a pleasurable thing for me, but if I'm gonna drink, it's to get somewhere. It's to get drunk. I don't know, that's just how I still feel to this day. So I convinced my mom to buy us Everclear, and we were playing beer pong with Everclear, okay? Everclear, and we mixed it with orange soda on this table, and like I said, I think there were like 5 of us there, and we're throwing pong balls and we're playing pong. Needless to say, we get fucked the fuck up. I remember like being so drunk. This was the first time, well, I've only really been drunk twice in my life because like I said, I don't really like to drink. This was the first time I was ever drunk in my life. Obviously, I was also super young. So, my nephew was also there. My nephew is my age. I have an older brother and an older half-sister, and my nephew is literally, I think he's 22 right now. I'm 23, so he's like my age, and he was there. So, long story short, we got really drunk. Party ends. My boyfriend was supposed to go home, but for some reason his parents couldn't come pick him up. He expected my parents to go to bed, and then we would all go outside and like hang out all over again. My parents have an RV, a camper, and he went and like stayed in there until my parents went to bed, and then we were all gonna go back outside and hang out again. So this is a point where like it was very weird for us to be hanging out with like all of my family because he was a very controlling person. Like during this time in his life, he was still a very controlling person. It was hard to like hang out with everyone together because he's used to having me to himself. So anyway, we all go into the house, my parents go to bed, and then we were all gonna go back outside and hang out again. So I call Lucifer. I'm calling him. He's not picking up. Like he's chilling in my parents' RV waiting for us to call him and say like, hey, they're asleep, we're gonna come out and hang out now. And I'm calling him, and he doesn't answer the phone. So I'm like, what the fuck? I guess he went to sleep. So me and my nephew, we were really close. He's too cool for me now, I guess. He never really wants to hang out with me anymore, but we used to be really close. So he's in my bedroom and we're just watching movies. And I guess some time goes by and Lucifer eventually wakes up and he comes and like knocks on my window, and I'm like, oh, like open the window to my nephew. Lucifer is awake, I guess. My nephew opens the window and Lucifer sees him, obviously, and starts freaking the fuck out. I don't know if Lucifer, while he was drunk and asleep, forgot that my nephew was my nephew, or if he just had an issue with my nephew being in my bed, but he was enraged, you guys. When I tell you he was so mad, he was so fucking mad. He's like texting me all these things like, you stupid fucking bitch, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why is there a dude in your room? And I keep telling him like, dude, chill the fuck out. Like, it's my nephew. I don't know what your problem is. We're arguing back and forth, and he eventually tells me that he's gonna wake up my parents. Because I guess he wanted to get back at me. So he starts throwing rocks at my window, you guys, like going and finding rocks and throwing them at my bedroom window. Now luckily my bedroom window was double paned, so whenever my window didn't break, he decided to rip the screen off of my window, and eventually this is like, at this point my parents weren't waking up because my parents' house is like on the other end of the house from mine. My sister heard it, so she came in there with her friends and she's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, dude, I don't know, he's losing his damn mind. And by this point I'm having to sober up because I was freaking out. You know, like it's one of those things when you get, your adrenaline is rushing and you're drunkness kind of comes down. So my sister is like freaking out. My sister gets really scared, not really easily, but she's just much more sensitive than I am. And also here's another situation where I'm like trying to make excuses for why it doesn't seem as bad, but like it's really bad when a drunk person is throwing rocks at your window, calling you names, screaming and acting belligerent. Like obviously that's scary, but for me it just seemed like all the things I had already been through with him, it wasn't that bad. So anyway, my sister's freaking out and she's like, Shelby, you have to do something about this. I'm gonna go wake up mom and dad. And I'm like, don't do that, because my dad didn't know we were drinking. My dad didn't know we were all really drunk, and neither one of them knew he was still there, so that was a problem. So my sister, but she decided to take matters into her own hands because she was freaking out, and she's like, she goes and gets our BB gun, which we were so young, you guys. My sister's 2 years younger than me, so she goes and gets this BB gun and she's like, I'm gonna shoot him, Shelby, I'm gonna shoot him. Like, okay. So you can see like our house, it's so hard to understand, but like me and my sister's room were right next to each other, and then towards the back of the house there was the laundry room, so you could go out the laundry room door and like around my house to where my room was, and there was a fence like between the laundry room and like the other side of my house. Like this is the laundry room, this is the other side of my house where he is, and there's a fence right here. My sister's like, I'm gonna take this BB gun and I'm gonna go to the door, and you need to go out there and you need to tell him to go home. And I'm like, okay. So she takes the BB gun, she's standing by the laundry room, she's like, and he's like screaming at me to come over the fence, get out here now, get out here now. And I'm like, dude, I'm fucking coming, like you need to chill the fuck out. And my sister's like right outside the door, and she's like, I'm gonna shoot you if you don't go acting like a fucking idiot. Like she was so scared and she was shaking, and I feel so bad that I even exposed her to this type of thing. So I go outside, I hop the fence and go outside to talk to him away from her, because I don't want her to see whatever the fuck is about to go down, because I know he's a crazy motherfucker and he was angry, and he thinks I have a boy in my room, and he's drunk on top of that. So I go out there to talk to him, and I'm like really trying to convince him, like, I don't know why you're so mad, like we were all supposed to be hanging out, whatever. And I remember like grabbing onto him and being like, dude, calm down, like just calm down, whatever. Like I went to hug him, I think, and he pushed me off of him, and I kept trying to convince him that things were fine, and he just took his fist and decked me right in the face. Like I had never been punched like that ever in before then, and up until now I had never been punched like that in the face. And like I said, I was still pretty like tipsy, drunk maybe even. He punched me and I knocked the fuck out. I fell right onto my back. And I remember looking up, like after I came back to, because I blacked out, I fell down, I looked up, and he was walking like away, like out of my yard. So then he went home. And I can't remember how the fuck we started talking again. I can't remember how we started like being okay again. I'm sure it didn't take much, because I was so fucked in the head. He had me so fucked in the head that I probably made an excuse like, oh, I should have known better. I shouldn't have had my nephew answer the window. I shouldn't have had him in there. This is all my fault. Like I should have done this, or I should have done that, or I could have said this, and all these things that I just made all these excuses for him in the world in my head, and forgave him, because we definitely didn't break up at that point. I know that for sure. I don't remember how I justified it. I just know that every time something like this happened, I did, and I just kept going on with the relationship. That's not the only time he hit me. Sorry, I'm repositioning myself because I'm getting like flustered talking about this. Yeah, that wasn't the only time he hit me. If you haven't seen my other story about when he stabbed me, that was one thing, but he also did slap me another time, because I was talking to a guy who was my friend and who was gay. I don't have any more crazy stories about him that I want to tell for this part. I mean, the breakup is crazy. What happened to me is crazy, like the way it went down. But that's going to be next week's story, so that's going to be it for the story times of Lucifer and Shelby. I'm really glad I got out of this situation, you guys. I don't know where I would be in my life if I hadn't. I definitely wouldn't have gotten to the point I am in my life with my education, and I wouldn't really have a family because I pushed so many of them away for so long. I wouldn't have friends because I wasn't allowed to, so you know, I can't imagine where I would be if I hadn't gotten out of this relationship. I was such a good girlfriend to him the whole time. I was never unfaithful. I never, you know, I never did anything bad. I was so young. I just can't even believe that I wasted so much time on someone like this, because I had so much potential to be so nice to other people, and I had so much potential to make friends with people who were better than him, and could have brought so much more value to my life than he ever did. You know, it is what it is. I'm glad I got through it now. So next week is going to be about how the breakup happened, and then following that I'll talk about how that relationship kind of impacted my future relationships. So yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you have anything you want to ask me, please do, and I will respond to you on my email. If you have any questions about this series or like what happened, you can leave it in the comments. Like this video if you like it, share it with anyone who might be going through the same thing. You can find me on all my social media. They're always linked right here. And until next time, create the peace. Why do I feel like this is always uneven? I can't even ever get it right. Ever. Y'all, I can't overdraw my lip any more than this. Like, what the fuck? Why is it doing this to me? Let's see if it's... I don't get it. I don't want it to look weird on camera. Do I look weird?